I'm Cheryl Ann Skolnicki, and this is Brilliant Balance, the show for those of us who still dare to want it all, who have big dreams and bold ambitions. I think we deserve to have a big, full life and the freedom to enjoy it. So let's design our next chapter together for brilliance, not burnout. Each week, I'll bring ideas, insight, and a fresh perspective to keep you growing into a life that feels as good as it looks. Brilliant Balance, your life, your way. Now let's get started. This is episode 387 of the Brilliant Balance podcast, and today I'm sharing insights from a Canyon Ranch retreat. So welcome back to the show. I am hopeful that if you pressed play on this episode, it's because you are considering giving yourself the opportunity to create a retreat experience where you get away from the rhythm of your everyday life and settle into a new rhythm of rest and renewal and reflection. And I got to have that experience recently. I was hosting a retreat in collaboration with Canyon Ranch, the Woodside, California property. And having just returned from it about a week ago, I thought this would be the perfect time to sit down at the microphone and capture some of my personal insights from being a part of this experience. I think that it really is one of those things that is so needed for every woman leader that I know. The women that I work with, I take to Canyon Ranch every year, the women who are in my coaching experience. But the women that I know outside of my professional life, I know would benefit from time away kind of regularly from their daily life. So I think Canyon Ranch is like, it's the high watermark experience, right? It is an exceptional, truly incredible collection of properties, and the way that they know how to lead these retreats is so extraordinary. And so I'm going to talk about the experience that I had, but and I think that this could be recreated in a variety of ways. But the ethos of it, you could pull into any kind of retreat experience that you are able to craft for yourself. So I want to share about this one because it's the one I had. And then I want you to think about what it would be like for you to have that same experience or some version of it that you create for yourself. Okay, so that's kind of my intention going into today, is both to share the experience that I had and also, hopefully, if I do this well, to inspire you to have your own. Okay. And I want you to picture just you arriving at a place that is truly different from your everyday experience, right? If you live in the city, maybe you picture yourself arriving in a really naturally beautiful setting. If you live in a rural environment, maybe you picture yourself getting to an entirely different landscape from where you are, or even in a city. I think you absolutely can have a retreat in the city. In this case, I want you to picture towering redwood trees, just as high as you can crane your neck to see, misty mornings, where the fog is just kind of descending into the area. So everything's a little damp, a little cloudy. And then as the day opens up, warm sunshine, bright sunshine, and lots of outdoor spaces for the chance for deep conversation and the luxury of having time that's really just for you. And that experience in Woodside is just about 35 minutes outside of the city of San Francisco. So in my case, we flew into the San Francisco airport and a car took us out to the property. And when you arrive at this property, it is a very intimate setting. It's like a single structure for the retreat center itself that houses all the different amenities that, you take advantage of during your stay. And then it's surrounded by like a ring of these smaller structures, which actually function as tree houses. They are luxury tree houses with a giant wall of windows that looks out directly into the forest. And the entire stay is set to follow like your circadian rhythm. So there's no window coverings on those on the backs of the tree houses. They have complete privacy, but it's designed so that as the sun goes down, you're tired. It's dark, right? And then as the sun comes up, you get that natural light sort of waking you up. naturally. And so they really encourage you at this particular property to lean into the power of resetting your circadian rhythms. And I'm going to think about this part as like settling into a different pace, because boy, that is not how we live at home every day, is it? And I think at first, as I arrived, I really felt that familiar urge to like fill my time. How am I going to stay productive or to maximize the schedule? There's so many different activities and events that you can take advantage of inside of their daily calendar. And also to sort of push past that natural tiredness that comes at nightfall. But gradually, I really was able to soften into the rhythm of this retreat experience. And I think part of that is because it was longer than I typically am away. We arrived on a Thursday afternoon and were there until Monday morning. So we really had that half day on Thursday. And I will say it took me that full half day to let go of the pace at which I'm normally operating and settle in a bit. Probably, if I'm honest, it even took me till about midday on Friday. So almost the first 24 hours just to get my system to kind of vibrate at a different frequency and slow down enough to have the experience that I was there to have. And at that point, it's like everything started to open up because that different pace opened up access to entirely different, insights and gave me the chance to really start to turn off some of the channels that are running all the time. I'm like one of those memes where we say, all the tabs are open, and I'm looking at my laptop screen, all the tabs are open on my laptop. That's what my brain feels like a lot. And I think that being able to settle into a different pace here was like closing tabs, right? Just being like, not going to need that one for a while. I'm going to focus on the few things that I'm doing here. And I think even at home, we can practice this by carving out intentional moments of slowness or hours of slowness. Maybe it's just sipping on that first cup of coffee of the day without scrolling, without email, without interruption, but just like a mindful moment with the coffee or the tea. Maybe it's taking a walk without anything in our ears, no podcast, no music, just the sounds of nature or the sound of our feet on the pavement, right? Just being present with one activity at a time can be a small way of this same practice that I think a retreat allows us to do in a more extended format. So again, I was here for 4 days essentially, and that amount of time at least gave me the chance to finally drop in and start letting go of the older rhythms. Another insight that I'll offer from the experience was I really felt like I leaned into the curiosity of like to try new things. I went in with an intention on some specific reflection that I wanted to do personally. And I don't know that I mentioned this. I was leading a number of sessions at this retreat. So for the women who had registered to attend this women's leaders retreat, I was on site to teach every day. But outside of the time that I was teaching, I was able to take advantage of the services and the offerings that were happening on property. And I really looked at the list and thought, there's a lot of things here that I like to do at home, right? I like to journal. I like to do yoga. I like to work out. There were a number of things that would have been really routine for me, but I wanted to give myself the chance to try some things that I might not normally have done. So for example, I signed up to do a drumming circle. Now, let me tell you, way outside my comfort zone, right? Don't play the drums at home. I'm not sure I've ever played the drums. So they had a whole circle of us who were in the same boat where that was not something that we typically had done, but leaning into that experience as a beginner and really adopting a beginner's mindset was such a powerful experience. And I know not just for me, but also for the people who were in the circle. Fun fact, the person who was leading the drumming circle that day had never done it before. He typically led other things on property, and the normal person who did drumming was out. And so he stepped in and he did a delightful job. And it was fun to watch the whole group being beginners together. I signed up for a watercolor session. So, we walked in and it was like, I kept saying the whole time it's like camp for grownups because they had all of the materials set up for us. So I think I would paint watercolor a lot more often if I didn't have to make a mess and deal with my own, materials, but everything was set up so beautifully. And again, my painting is not going to get hung in any galleries. I mean, it was just strictly something to do for the pleasure of doing it, right? To remember what it felt like to do like a watercolor painting as a kid. And some of those experiences just became sort of magical because of that, because it was something that I was curious about, gave myself permission to try, but hadn't actually tried yet. And I think when we step outside of our routine to do something that just sounds fun, it just sounds appealing, that really can open something new in us. So I want to encourage you as you think about applying this even at home, right? Or in your own retreat, what's something that you've been curious about doing, but you haven't tried it yet? Where can you sign yourself up for a single class, a single experience that kind of opens a new neural pathway, right? It gets you, it kind of shakes you out of the rhythm or the rut that maybe you've settled into. And I am so disciplined by nature that it is very easy for me to settle into a rut. And this was a really gentle way of kind of getting myself out of that and trying some different things. Another thing that I think was particularly powerful about this retreat experience was, and it had a strong orientation toward nature. Again, being set in the redwoods, walking among those trees, both on property where there's just an amazing little trail. Maybe it's like a mile and a half, and it has lots of kind of stopping points built into it. Like there's a labyrinth at one point, and there's a meditation space, and there's a small waterfall that were kind of built in at a place that I think they called the Forgiveness Corner, which I loved. And when I was walking among those giant trees, I felt small in the best way. Like my worries didn't loom quite so large. My perspective shifted in a way that felt like I took my rightful place as like a much smaller entity in such a large presence. And when you think about how long those trees had been alive and how many people had walked that same path, it really helped to reflect on the healing power of nature and how being in it and reconnecting with it shifts our perspective. I want to talk to all my fellow business owners and introduce you to my friends at Mackie. They are experts in providing CFO services that give you the clarity and confidence that you need, not only to succeed, but to make those strategic decisions that transform your business. Listen, running a business can be stressful, and trust me, I get it. You always want more time away from work to do the things you love, but you also want more profit. And that's where Mackie comes in, with their full-service financial, accounting, and executive guidance. With their Prosper for Business system, you'll have a trusted partner by your side, combining strategic planning, data analysis, and goal setting to help you grow further, better, and faster. And their results speak for themselves. Mackie's clients experience an average first-year profit increase of over 100%, and business owners report a 20% increase in time freedom. So start your journey to prosper today. Visit mackieadvisors.com/brilliant balance and book your consultation. And I think that there was a particular activity there that I got to do called Shinrin-yoku, which is a Japanese tradition that our instructor was explaining. Simply means forest bathing. And it is literally the idea of just mindfully being in nature, being, kind of going for a walk in the woods. And if you have a wooded area anywhere near you, this is something that you can do at home. You can build into a weekend, even a short walk outside, or even just opening a window to get some fresh air can be so grounding. So Shinrin-yoku was designed to say, how do we can reconnect with the powerful presence of being in nature? It's so restorative. Something within us knows that like we crave that, and giving ourselves that opportunity when we're kind of so far outside of it for most of our day is really, really powerful. There were so many activities on property. We actually went off property to a couple of different trailheads and had guided hikes. If you're at Canyon Ranch at other times during the year, there are kayaking opportunities, mountain biking opportunities, all really oriented to being outside. And we ate most of our meals outside. There are beautiful wraparound porches that face out into these gorgeous views where it made a lot of sense, right? To just if you're going to be spending an hour eating a meal really mindfully, how wonderful to be able to do that sitting outside. So that's another practice, I think, to bring that into daily life or to build into your own retreat could be really powerful. Another thing that I thought was a key takeaway or insight from this experience was that it somehow helped me reframe things that I don't normally like or I'm not normally drawn to as like sources of beauty. Or like, for example, I do not like rain. If you know me at all, you would know I just hate it. I hate being in the rain. I don't like rainy days. I don't like gray days. I don't like foggy, misty days. But one of the days that we were signed up to do an extended hike off property, it was going to be raining. Okay. And I usually grumble about it and don't want to be out in it. And in fact, that definitely started up that morning. And I was sharing that with some of the staff who were, in the restaurant or at the coffee bar. And to a person, every single person that I said that to was like, oh, but the forest comes alive on a rainy day. They're the best hikes. And their enthusiasm was contagious. And I thought, okay, what if I use this as an invitation to reframe my perspective on rainy days, right? What if I could look at that mist as being kind of ethereal, right? What if I could view it as like this haze of something magical instead of something that was like, oh, I can't believe I'm going to be out in the rain, right? And my hair is going to curl and it's going to just be miserable and I'm going to be wet and my shoes are going to be wet. By the way, all of those things happened, right? Every one of those things happened. But I went into it with two guides who were so excited to be there. I mean, genuinely, you could not have had two more enthusiastic guides on this hike. And a small group of people who were equally willing to just put aside any kind of disdain for the weather and say, we're going to go have this experience together regardless. And it was fantastic. It was absolutely fantastic. They had ponchos that they were able to give us. We had walking sticks. Yes, our shoes got wet. It didn't matter. We got to see that forest at a really special time. So I think sometimes we get into stories that we've told ourselves for so long, like, I don't like the rain, that it blocks us from having certain experiences. And I would ask you, as you think about your own life, what is something in your daily life that maybe could take on a magical characteristic if you gave yourself permission to look at it differently, right? If you viewed it as something that you get to experience instead of something that's like, oh, I can't believe this is happening. That's a challenging one, but I will tell you, if I can walk out of a rainy day going, that was a great day, I think we can do just about anything. Another really powerful insight coming out of this was like a redefinition of luxury and somehow like the beauty of really quiet, understated luxury. So I think that this particular property has almost like an effortless elegance. It's the kind of place where people are walking around with no makeup, cozy layers, undone hair, like, I'm talking about the rain. There was such freedom in showing up exactly as we were. No performance, right? No polish, just really being present with each other. And the amount of time that it opens up when we're not trying to present in a way that's so constructed, right? Where we're just able to like show up and have the experience can feel deeply luxurious in a different way. Contrast it with like maybe you're going out for a night of like dinner and theater and you're getting dressed and kind of pulling on your best things and you're wearing shoes that don't feel great and clothes that are tight and all that. This is like the opposite of that. And the simplicity really can feel deeply luxurious. So one of the things that it evokes is this idea of like carefree timelessness. I've used that phrase before in the podcast where we're with people that we want to be with and we're not watching the clock. Okay. And then layer into that the idea that while we're with those people and not watching the clock, we also don't have to spend half our time getting ready, right? We just kind of show up as we are. And I think that that was a very powerful reframe at this particular property, right? It's a very active center, right? People go there to Canyon Ranch at all of their properties to be active. So of course, we're not going to be running around in fancy clothes and makeup, like, right? It's designed to be a place where you're just kind of settled in. But I think that this particular property took that to like a whole new level. And I just found it to be very powerful. It was like an equalizing factor across the experience. So I, just invite you to think about, how do you embrace that in your own way? Maybe today you just go with the ponytail, right? Maybe you skip the mascara. Maybe you wear the cozy sweater instead of the structured blazer. Just let yourself breathe and really see what that opens up in terms of this quiet luxury where it's about space and it's about comfort and it's about time expanding. That is a really powerful vision to hold as you're setting up your own experience and maybe practicing for it in small ways. Another thing that I was thinking about as I came back from the experience was what it is like to allow yourself to receive. So many of the people who listen to this show are caregivers, right? We have spouses and children and teams and parents that we are caring for, meals to prepare and spaces to take care of and needs to be anticipated. And as someone who is very used to taking care of everyone else, this felt wildly indulgent and also deeply necessary, right? To be able to shift into the receiver's seat, to allow ourselves to say yes when someone offers something to us. Would you like another cappuccino? Yes, please. I said yes to a lot of cappuccinos during this particular retreat. But, when something is being offered, would you like a blanket at yoga? Would you like, to borrow our poncho for this hike? We're so like, our knee-jerk reaction is to be like, no, I'm fine. Right? I don't need a bottle of water. I don't need a bathroom break. I don't need anything. And I think if you look for small ways to allow yourself to receive something from someone, right? Let someone else handle dinner. Let them pick up the kids. Let them offer to run a bath for you. Anything that you can say yes to where someone is offering you that gift is such a gift back to them, right? We all love to take care of people and we love it when they appreciate it. And I think this opportunity to say yes when someone is offering to take care of you because you've put yourself in the situation of being at a retreat, right? Or someone in your daily life has offered it up to you is a very, very powerful shift. That we're such good givers. It's very important that we also learn how to receive when the opportunity presents itself. And I think the last big thing I wanted to share is that there was real joy in meeting new people. I was actually kind of surprised by how many people attended this retreat solo, right? They had signed up because they found it or someone who loved them found it and said, hey, this is an experience happening for women leaders. I think you should go. Or they went looking and said, I need to have an experience. And they went by themselves. And I watched these relationships form throughout just 4 days of them being away from all of the other tethers to their daily life and being open to that connection. So whether they were going on a hike with someone, sharing a meal with them, debriefing about a service that they had just experienced in the spa, doing a workout together that they had never done before, and then kind of like sharing in the exhilaration of that, going on this, forest bathing experience, learning about the food that was being served. They were having those experiences together. And it's amazing how quickly those connections form when we're in a space of openness to meeting new people. So in my sessions, I would have, a circle of women who readily started to share with each other and with me about the stories that were going on in their lives. And they didn't know each other at all before this experience. And there's such magic in expanding those circles, in having conversations with people who can provide perspective and maybe share some piece of that, experience with us. So I think even in our lives at home, if we can cultivate this openness to conversation, strike up a conversation with someone, ask a deeper question, get to know them a little bit, I think it is a really powerful way for us to not feel so alone. And so many people feel so alone much of the time. And there really is deep joy in getting to know that everyone has a story and they are often willing to share it. So I met a lot of people there that I just was thrilled to get to know, some of whom I am confident I will be in touch with, for a long time to come. And it is just really powerful that can happen in such a short amount of time. So I think overall, this whole experience of being able to participate in the retreat, it just reminded me that we don't really have to wait for anyone's permission to be able to pull out of our daily life for a bit, to rest, to explore, to reflect, to receive. We can choose to do these things anytime. And it doesn't have to be 4 days. It can be 2 hours that we're able to pull out of our day-to-day grind and have a small experience. And it is wonderful when we can have a more extended experience where we're really able to have a true retreat. So I would love for you to experience Canyon Ranch at Woodside or one of its other properties. And I am so delighted to say that they are making a discount code available for listeners of this podcast. The code is just my first name, Cheryl Ann. So when you go to book a stay at any of the Canyon Ranch properties, and there are several, Woodside, California, again, is the one that I've been talking about in this episode. Every year, I take a group to their flagship property, which is in Tucson, Arizona. There's one in Lenox, Massachusetts. There's one in Texas. So you have choices that, maybe you can find one that's closer to you or one where the climate is particularly appealing to you. But that code, Cheryl Ann, will give you a 10% discount off of your stay. And one of the beautiful things about the Canyon Ranch properties overall is that they are all-inclusive properties. So by the time you land at the airport closest to the stay or drive to the property, everything is included, with the exception of some of the spa services and a couple of the one-on-one services that are provided are incremental. But there is a full daily roster of activities that are included. All of your food is included. Beautiful accommodations are included. And I think the level of service and the level of care provided by their staff is just exceptional. So I hope it's something that you'll consider doing for yourself, meeting some people along the way as you're having that experience. And if you do decide to do it, I would love to hear from you that you are gifting yourself this experience because you listened to this podcast and it was inspiring to you, and that you are going to go and have your own retreat experience where you can reflect on the life that you have and renew the elements of it that seem like they need to be refreshed or renewed. All right. Thank you for listening today. I am so delighted always by the fact that you tune in and listen in and then share your insights back with me. That's all for today, my friends. Till next time, let's be brilliant.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.